Good afternoon, Prof. and friends. We are from Group C14 and we will be presenting on the economic and social feasibility of cycling districts in Singapore. This is the content of our presentation. With the loom of a climate crisis ahead, it is important that nations shift their gaze away from luxuries like private cars and move towards more sustainable means of transportation. In light of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, cycling districts are one of the measures cities are adopting to become more sustainable. With an increasing focus on cycling and its potential benefits not only on the environment, but also on physical health and the well-being of citizens, it is paramount to begin taking steps to implement this, especially in the context of Singapore. As an island nation with little natural resources, Singapore is particularly vulnerable to climate change, and thus must make its move to implement the strategy of cycling districts in its infrastructure. Cycling districts are designated regions within a city that are designed and organized to promote cycling as a primary mode of transport, making use of both policies and infrastructure to obtain optimal results. However, there is no one solution that fits all, as every city has different climates, infrastructure, and cultural mindsets towards cycling. Thus, the process of incorporating cycling districts within cities requires deliberate thought about its economic and social feasibility and collaboration to actualize the goal of developing sustainable cities. In this case, we will be taking reference from other countries to best see how to implement their methods into Singapore. They are Copenhagen, which is the gold standard of cycling, and New York City, which has tight parallels to Singapore with its highly dense population and small landmass. Referencing these cities, the economic and social feasibility of adopting their best practices in creating cycling districts in Singapore can be discussed.
Thanks, Asher. Now let's focus on what Singapore's climate and solutions around cycling look like. Cycling has boomed since the COVID-19 pandemic, with bike shops reporting a 20% to 50% increase in sales from 2019 to 2021. The government has also shown its pro-cycling sentiments through the development of more cycling infrastructure. New cycling routes will be added to the current network of recreational routes, spanning a total of 360 kilometers. Commuting in the central business district by bike will be made easier and safer for pedestrians and cyclists with the new cycling path networks connecting multiple MRT stations. Other benefits derived from such a solution would be the enhancement of one's identity, as well as the emergence of place-making opportunities. However, there seems to be more to the issue than just the lack of cycling infrastructure within Singapore. The boom in cycling seems to be a passing fad, as cycling is merely seen as a hobby rather than a transport mode. The mindset and prevalent culture of Singaporeans striving to obtain the 5 Cs seem to deter Singaporeans from switching their mode of transport to bicycles, as Singaporeans are unwilling to abandon their cars, the symbols of their affluence. Furthermore, there are social-cultural stigmas against cycling as a mode of transport, with a survey by CNA showing that most Singaporeans are still not receptive to cyclists in general, with 59% of its participants not wanting cyclists on the roads and 74% of them not wanting cyclists on pavements. On top of these are factors such as the hot and humid climate in Singapore, as well as the lack of bicycle facilities around existing public transportation systems that further discourage Singaporeans from adopting cycling as an everyday mode of transport. Therefore, the hurdles of insufficient infrastructure and prevailing negative attitudes must be overcome before cycling districts can be viable in Singapore.
Now, let's take a look at the case studies of New York City and Copenhagen's cycling districts. Let us start with Copenhagen, the gold standard of cycling districts, and what they have done. Denmark's national bicycle policies are a comprehensive 3-pillar approach to make cycling a safe, easy, inexpensive, and accessible means of transport for everyone. This is namely everyday cycling, active holidays, and new and safe cyclists. For instance, Denmark has built more bicycle parking spaces closer to public transportation, so citizens would consider the use of mixed mode transportation when traveling long distances. The investment in cycling superhighways improves accessibility in more cities and changes perceptions of acceptable and natural cycling distances, potentially encouraging mixed mode transportation. Cycling can only be the natural choice of transport if people feel safe using it and have access to the necessary infrastructure, such as designated bike paths and parking spaces. This is done through speed limits on main roads near cycling paths and better signage to address safety concerns. The infrastructure within Denmark also favors cyclists over car users through the principle of green wave, cyclists who maintain a speed of 20 km per hour are able to surf a wave of green lights throughout the city. This allows a continuous flow of traffic during rush hour, and cyclists can move into the city swiftly and avoid traffic congestion. The implementation of the green wave thus supports the use of bicycles over cars, since the infrastructure is centered around cycling. Moreover, Denmark adopted several campaigns to further encourage its citizens to cycle. Denmark's yearly Bike to Work national campaign attracts about 110,000 participants yearly. Companies in Denmark form cycling teams that compete with each other for prizes. This campaign has been an enormous success, with 35% of the participants stating that they are more inclined to cycle in the future. Additionally, out of the participants every year, 10% are new cyclists attracted by the campaign. Another highly successful campaign by the Denmark Cyclist Federation is the Bike to School campaign. Every time a student cycles to school wearing a helmet, they will be eligible for a ticket for the nationwide lucky draw. The campaign not only heightened many schools' focus on cycling, but also greatly increased the number of students wearing helmets.
Now, we'll be taking a look at New York City, or NYC for short, which parallels the current situation of Singapore with its small landmass and highly dense population. Our main focus will be City Bike, the largest municipal bike share service in the United States. The NYC Department of Transportation, DOT, established a bicycle program to cope with the increasing demand for cycling. DOT has made efforts improving its infrastructure, expanding and enhancing on-street bike networks. Protected bike lanes have been built to facilitate cycling, the connection of critical links making cycling more accessible for people of all ages and abilities. As a result, cycling has been made more convenient for both short and long-distance travel. With 30% of adult New Yorkers riding a bike and approximately 880,000 New Yorkers riding regularly, this shows the importance of infrastructure and resources catered to these people. Looking at City Bike, with more than 27,000 bikes and 1,700 separate docking stations spread across 4 of NYC's 5 boroughs, the layout of City Bike allows for multi-directional travel as it covers the gap between bus and subway stations, with 74% of all City Bike stations within a quarter mile of a subway station entrance. This eases the transfer between cycling and public transit, thus attracting users to cycle more instead of just relying on buses. Additionally, City Bike offers 2 plans for the users, which are affordably priced, namely City Bike and City Bike plus Grubhub plus Lyft, costing USD $17.08 per month and USD $16.58 per month, respectively. Compared to the monthly unlimited Metro card, which costs USD $132, it is apparent that City Bike is much more affordable and accessible. These efforts are supported by distributing over 300,000 complimentary bicycle helmets and conducting helmet fitting events across the city for New Yorkers as part of the DOT Bike Encouragement campaign. This initiative has played a significant role in increasing public awareness about cycling.
With these 2 case studies, just what lessons can we take away from these cities and how can we implement them in Singapore? While the Danish government continues to invest in cycling routes and policies, many accidents occur because biking lanes are crammed, with cyclists racing for space while children walk alongside them and cars squeeze on the tiny roads. Accidents happen in Copenhagen's continuous traffic, leaving cyclists especially vulnerable, thus calling the need for police officers to start biking among the Danes to boost safety and advocate positive behavior. However, the fact remains that many Danes choose to cycle, and the policies are indeed effective, even as the development of the infrastructure cannot keep up with these successes. Singapore can emulate Copenhagen's successful bicycle campaign by investing in proper infrastructure and promoting cycling as a main mode of transportation. While car ownership soared in the 1950s, Copenhagen still maintains its cycling stance, showing that Singapore can still strive to achieve something similar. In regards to City Bike, there exist several perceived barriers to cycling, that being infrastructure, safety, and environmental factors. Looking at such environmental factors, temperatures between 12 to 20 degrees Celsius show the best results for cycling. And wind speeds above 6 km per hour reduce the number of cyclists on the weekends, but not so much on the weekdays. Lastly, rain exhibits a suppressing effect that is consistent across both weekdays and weekends. This is especially relevant in Singapore, with average temperatures between 25 to 31 degrees Celsius, wind speeds of 9 km per hour, and consistent monsoon seasons. This will be a hurdle to overcome with regards to low ridership in Singapore. Next, the way the bicycle is built plays a significant role. The city bike is primarily designed for single riders. This means that if a parent wishes to transport their child to school, city bike may not be suitable for their needs. City bikes lack the provision for bike-mounted child seats. Hence, its construction does not support their usage. This in contrast to someone who merely intends to use cycling for a quick commute to get food and back home. This is an aspect Singapore can look into and consider to implement different versions of bicycles, such as child-friendly bike share, that caters to the needs of different users. As such, what would be the apt solution to implement in Singapore? We can firstly draw inspiration from New York City's City Bike Initiative. The Singapore government can establish partnership with key stakeholders like the bike sharing company Anywheel. Awareness of cycling as a viable transport option can also be raised through well-crafted advertising campaigns with such partnerships, making cycling more accessible to the public. Taking alignment from Denmark, we can enhance our cycling infrastructure by installing bicycle facilities near MRT stations, as well as by adopting solutions that prioritize cyclists over car users, as seen in Denmark's Green Wave. Additionally, introducing shower facilities in schools and workplaces will encourage more people to cycle, as seen in another Icelandic country, the Netherlands. Furthermore, implementing cycling-friendly policies like Denmark's Bike to School campaign will encourage citizens to cycle by offering monetary incentives.
Moving on to feasibility. With regards to the economic feasibility, government funding is paramount to ensure that Anywheel is in a better position to offer discounts and bundle deals for its users. Given its profit maximization approach, Anywheel will be more inclined to implement strategies aimed at expanding its user base to ensure user retention, as well as to enhance customer satisfaction. Hence, the partnership with the government will be a win-win situation for both parties, therefore underscoring the economic viability. Programs similar to Denmark's Bike to School programs, such as the Healthy 365 program, can also be implemented to invest in the health of Singaporeans. The program can be tailored to frequent cyclists who can be granted discounts at healthy food outlets or subsidies for healthy groceries. The government can also tap on the competitive or casual attitude of Singaporeans to ensure their enthusiastic participation in the program. By incurring a short-term loss in granting such discounts or subsidies, the government will be able to gain in the long term as the general population health improves. As the health of the average Singaporean improves, their work productivity will follow suit, which will result in a nationwide boom in the economy. In addition, the social feasibility of cycling needs to be considered. By allocating funds to support Anywheel, we can expand the coverage area with additional government resources. This expansion could lead to the development of well-designed cycling routes, which in turn might shift public's perception towards cycling, dispelling the notion that it's inconvenient. The installation of bicycle-friendly facilities, in other words, parking lots and bicycle superhighways near MRT stations, the implementation of the Green Wave, and shower facilities at schools and workplaces will aid in changing the mindset of Singaporeans towards cycling. Cycling will not just be perceived as a leisure activity, but will now be viewed as a viable transport option. The proximity of the parking lots and bicycle superhighways near MRT stations and the resulting convenience will encourage Singaporeans to use intermodal transport instead of using cars. Additionally, applying policies similar to the Green Wave will cause traffic lights to prioritize cyclists over cars, increasing the attractiveness of cycling to workers in Singapore. Finally, the installation of shower facilities at workplaces and schools will also allow Singaporeans to cycle without having to worry about the inconvenience of sweating due to the hot climate in Singapore. I will now pass the time over to Asher.
In conclusion, the adoption of cycling districts clearly benefits Singapore's sustainable goals. Our comprehensive analysis has highlighted how various countries are dedicating time and resources to raise awareness and to incorporate cycling practices as an integral part of daily life. Nonetheless, there are some challenges Singapore needs to consider, including how we can enhance infrastructure and devise strategies to reshape the public's perception of cycling. We believe that we can address these challenges by installing bike parking facilities near MRT stations to enhance accessibility, prioritizing cyclists on roads, and introducing incentives. We envision that this plan holds an economical and social viability for Singapore, relying on collaboration with the government for funding, resources, and support. Although it does take time, we anticipate a gradual shift in the public's acceptance of cycling as a mainstream mode of transport.